What's up, guys? We're on to lesson 3, double upload. Same clothes, double upload. Maybe this was uploaded a different day, I don't know. But if you guys see this in the same day, yes, you guys are getting a double blessing. We need to learn the bass more. And those first 2 lessons, they were basically me messing up and basically me having to clarify on the second episode because I was just way too all over the place on the first episode. So I just wanted to clarify a second, just to as my head was more straight. But yeah, we're on to the next lesson. So by now, you guys should already know how to I told you guys you could experiment with different variations, get good at it, get proficient at it, letting these two communicate. And now we're on to the next lesson. That is actually like the second lesson, because technically the second episode was like an overview of the first episode. It was kind of like, oh, it's cringe. Oh, he doesn't know how to teach bass lessons. But you know what? I'm just being myself. This one's going to be unedited, so we're going to learn today. This is an organic lesson from the Lord. Hopefully he leads me. Hopefully, like, I don't stray away from the path of bass. But, yes. So, you know what? Let's get some overview. So, a lot of people, when they learn the bass, all they want to do is learn the scales, right? And learn patterns, right? But I want to tell you guys, if you do that, you're doing it wrong. Trust me, all right? So I was really blessed. I was Googling stuff like, I was 13, right? I was actually 12, and I was just about to turn 13 that month, and I was looking for some like good bass resources, right? And bruh, I'm so blessed that I came across this website. If I ever find it, I'll probably post it in the description down below, and so you guys get the same resources. But bruh, so the reason I will actually be teaching music theory today, all right? And the reason why is because we need to understand what we play, okay? And that's really like the thing that's missing in this generation, I think. I mean, not generation, but like this generation of people learning music that you know, the reason why people, you know, stop learning instruments because they don't really understand what they're playing. They just feel like they're learning random stuff and they don't get the theory behind it. But if you learn theory, a lot of people say, right? A lot of people say that you don't need theory, right? That it gets in the way of your creativity. But I decline. If you learn theory, it helps you so much with your creativity. Like, bro, it will definitely make your playing experience. Just don't box yourself up when you learn theory. The thing with theory is that people think that you have to play all the right notes, right? No, you're allowed to play wrong notes, and there's theory behind that too. So if you ever get curious about like what you want to play, like if you want a certain sound, learn up the theory of the music genre you want to study, right? For me, it was gospel. Like they were hitting all these weird substitutions, right? And they were playing some weird lines, melody lines that weren't in the scale. So the first lesson is going to be about intervals, because that's your bread and butter. Like intervals make up chords, intervals make up arpeggios. They're like the most fundamental. They're like the atoms. You guys know atoms, right? They're like the smartest particle that make up the universe, right? But later we found out about quantum mechanics and that there's even subatomic particles. But let's just keep it simple, right? If we were talking about subatomic particles, we'd probably be talking about microtonal music. But let's stick to like simple stuff, right? Let's stick to simple stuff that we can understand. Okay? All right. So to know intervals means to also know the natural number system, which I will get to in another episode, maybe after this one, right? Because it's really hard to communicate, like it's really hard to communicate notes, right? If you're just saying notes, but it's easier with numbers. This probably makes no sense at all, but like it will make sense later on. So I will not be teaching you guys notes at all. All right, this is kind of weird, but if you want to learn notes, study it in your own time. But I'm telling you guys, intervals will make such a big difference, okay? Maybe I'll teach a little bit about notes because it's really hard to do that. But on your own, study notes for yourself. But we're going to get into intervals and why it's important. All right, so pick a note, any note, right? And we're going to stick to one string, okay? To keep things simple, okay? The reason why, it's harder to find notes because if you're going from string to string, it's just gonna get all confusing. But we keep things simple by playing just one note on one string. All right. So G, this is your root. This is your one. This is what they call your fundamental note. Okay. Second note, if you go up, we're gonna be comparing intervals, and intervals are basically the distance between from one note to the next note, right? And we're gonna base it all from this note right here. This is the third fret. This is the G. This is the G note right here. And G sharp, you know, forget what I said about notes, but like, I will be saying notes, but just know that the interval theory is more important and knowing the names of the intervals. So this is called the minor second, right? The reason being is this is the root, this is the one, all right? And so we like to split up scales. Well, we like to split up the interval names into like 7 sections, right? So it'll be 1 minor second or flat 2, minor being like a lower version, and then the next note after flat 2 or the minor second is 2 itself. So you get the difference right there. This is 2, this is flat 2, and this is sharp 2 right here. So this is 2 right here. So 1, flat 2, 2, and notice we're going to go to the 3. So we say flat 3 for the next one. This is 3 itself. Okay, this is weird, but we don't have a flat 3 at all. Technically, it's the perfect fourth, but we like to call it just the 4. So you got your 4 here, the perfect fourth. This is your major third. This is your minor third, or your augmented second. All right. So this is weird. This is really, really weird, right? You were probably really confused about all these names, right? But stick with me, please. Just stick with me. So this is the root. We're gonna keep going over this until it's in your brain. All right. So 1, flat 2, or minor second. Minor because it's a little bit lower than the 2 itself, so it's a minor. That's what defines a minor chord. That's what defines a minor interval. I don't want to get into chords right now, but that's what defines a minor interval, that it's 1 note lower. All right. So the minor second or the flat 2. Remember those two. Those are important. Write this down if you have to. So the root, minor second, or flat 2, the major second, or the 2 itself, and then the flat 3, or the minor third, and then the 3 itself, or the major third, the perfect fourth, the diminished fifth right here. All right? This is called the diminished fifth, or the flat 5, and this is the perfect fifth, and then this is called the flat 6, and this is called the 6, major 6, all right? 6 or major 6, flat 6 or sharp 5. So you see how this is the 6 and this is the 5? It has 2 different names because it's relative to the 6 and 5. So it's flat away from 5, and it's it's flat away from 6 and up away from 5. So we call this the augmented fifth or the diminished sixth. And this is the 6 itself, right? So there's a pattern going on here, right? If it's 1 note lower, it's a minor, and it's called a flat, right? And if it's a little bit higher, then it's called augmented. And if it's the note itself, it's called the major, right? But the 2 is usually defined as the minor, right? So we don't call that the major 2, all right? We call that just the minor 2 itself. And then the note below is the flat 2. That's the minor second, because that's what makes it minor, right? As we said. So let's start from the beginning again. So we'll restart, all right? So root, flat 2, minor second, major 2, or the 2 itself, flat 2, minor second, 2, major 2, and this is flat 3. And these are all notes relative to this note. So if you want to hear how that sounds in comparison with the root note, just play the root note and then play the note that you want to play after that. Minor second, major second, minor third, third, perfect fourth, diminished fifth, fifth, diminished sixth or augmented fifth, sixth, flat 7. We also like to call this the minor 7 because the 7 is right here and it's down 1 from the 7. The major 7 or the 7 itself, and back to the root. So you notice that it takes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, takes 12 notes to get back to the same spot, right? Technically takes 11, right? Since you're just playing from the 1, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Actually, yeah, 12 notes. My bad. Takes 12 notes to get back to the same note. And the distance between, so after you've learned all those intervals, right? Just memorize those, all right? Those are important. The main ones you want to learn are like the main numbers themselves. So the 1, major 2, major 3rd, perfect 4th, perfect 5th, major 6, major 7, and the 1. And then in between those, you can identify what the notes are. So in between the 7 and the 6 is the minor 7, or you could also call it the sharp 6, though that's not as common. And in between the 6 and the 5, the major 6 or the perfect 5th is the augmented 5th, all right? Augmented means a little bit higher, and diminished means lower than one note, right? So the diminished 6, because 6 right here, and you go down 1, and then it's augmented from the 5th because you go up 1. So major 6, perfect 5th, and then in between is augmented 5th or diminished 6, all right? And then from the 5th to the 4th, in between that is the diminished 5th or the sharp 4, or we usually don't call it major 4 here, so just stick to just diminished 5th. That's probably the most common one. Diminished 5th or sharp 4 in between the 6 and the 5, all right? This is all relative to G. And if you want to hear how it sounds in comparison, the diminished 5th, that's one of the most unstable intervals in all of music. It's actually called like the devil's tritone, right? Because it's like 3 minor thirds away. So this distance right here, remember we learned this was a minor third, right? So we do root, flat 2, 2, minor third. And if we treat this as the root, we go a minor third again. 1, flat 2, 2, minor third. We see that it takes 3 tones to get to that diminished 5th, right? So it has this really ominous sounding, that devilish sound, right? And it was actually forbidden in churches to be played those 2 notes together, but now like it's everywhere in gospel and it's so common. So yeah, always so here's the assignment for you guys for learning intervals. Like, compare those sounds, right? See that unstable? It's really defining, and you gotta really know how those intervals sound, because they define. When we start joining intervals together, they're what make up the chords. They're what make up the arpeggios. That's why intervals are not to be skipped. Don't go straight to chords. Don't go straight to scales, because everything is built from the intervals, okay? Interval theory is so important. And if you understand interval theory, knowing the music theory behind chords, knowing the music theory behind scales will all make sense, right? Because they all have their defining sounds. And when you mix those sounds together, you get something beautiful. You get like this. This is if you treat this as the root, you got the perfect 5th here, you got the 6th, and these are all stable sounds, right? And that's what makes up this is what's called a major 6 chord, I believe. I think this is called a major 7 chord. It's so stable. And then you have unusual chords like this is called the dominant 7 with a flat 13. It's what's called an altered chord. An altered chord is like a family of chords that have a tritone in it, actually. The flat 7 and the minor 3rd, or the minor 7 and the major 3rd. See how it makes sense? Like, if you guys actually have a little bit background of music theory, like, you'll be like so surprised and shocked. Like, I know I was when I was able to connect the dots between intervals, chords, and scales. Like, so guys, please learn your intervals. We will go over it again. 1, minor 2nd, flat 2, 2 itself. Actually, this could also be called a sharp 1, but that is really uncommon, right? And I'm no music theory professional, so I'm not probably getting all these names right, but I know the basic idea and gist of it. So if you guys want to like actually get more in depth to it, like, there's a ton of resources. Like I said, I will link that source that I studied intervals from down below. So 1, flat 2, or sharp 1, 2. you know, stick to the numbers now, right? Stick to the numbers, but also like minor second is also nice to know. Major second, minor third, third, fourth, diminished fifth, augmented fourth, perfect fifth. Then you got the augmented fifth or the diminished sixth, and then the sixth, and then you got the minor seven or the augmented sixth. Though augmented sixth is less uncommon, right? Or more uncommon. And then you got the major seven, and you're back to your root. So remember, those are 12 intervals that you memorize, and some of them have multiple names because they're in between two notes that are minor or major, right? Or diminished or augmented, right? So keep that in mind. It'll be easier to remember, right? So in between 1 and 2, you got a minor second or a sharp 1. In between 2 and 3, you got a diminished 3 or augmented 2, or we'd like to call it minor third, or augmented second, but no one really says that. So it's I guess it would make more sense like if you knew what those names actually mean. Diminished means half step below, and half step is one note away, right? A whole step is two half steps, so it's 2 notes away. So the intervals are composed of 12 intervals, okay? And we learned them through half stepping our way up back to the root. Those notes repeat. So yeah, guys, study those intervals. They're gonna become very handy. They're gonna piece beautifully with the wonderful thing we call music theory. I'm no music theory professional, all right? Like, I tried studying jazz solos, like, I couldn't do it. Like, I mostly stick to a lot of diatonic theory, which is basically saying, like, you stay within the major scale. And we will learn that in the next lesson. It's composed of intervals, yes. So, if you guessed that, good on you. But yeah, that's the lesson for today. Learn your intervals. Rewatch this if you have to. Intervals will become very handy. And as we go throughout the lessons, through arpeggios, through scales, reference this video because they will piece in why scales sound a certain way. They will piece in why a chord sounds a certain way, why we don't always play in the scale. Like that's what I mentioned earlier is called diatonic, is when we stay within the scale. When we don't stay within the scale, that's something called non-diatonic. And this whole thing is also a scale. It's called the chromatic scale, which includes all the notes of Western harmony, as we call it, because, you know, some cultures include more notes than this. Like microtonal music we were discussing in the beginning of this video, that's like more Middle Eastern. But yeah, for now we're only studying Western music theory because it's the most dominant kind of music right now. But if you ever want to get into that kind of theory, that's beyond me. Just go study it for yourself. But yes, I hope this lesson, you know, you might not find any value in this lesson actually, so I'm not going to say I hope this lesson helped you, but trust me, this is worth learning. Intervals, follow the link down in the description. Yeah, see you guys.